Hi. For the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about something that's very difficult to imagine happening here. I'm going to be talking about what to do in an active shooter situation. We hear about these events in the news and see them portrayed in movies and television, and thankfully, the odds of actually being involved in an active shooter event are remote. But just like we want you to be prepared for other life-threatening emergencies, we want you to be prepared and know what to do if something like this were to happen here. In this video, we'll discuss how to recognize an active shooter situation, how to react to give you the best chance of getting to safety, and how to respond to police officers when they arrive on the scene. First, let's define exactly what we mean when we talk about an active shooter. An active shooter is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms, and there is no pattern or method to their selection of targets. Active shooter situations are unpredictable, and they evolve quickly. To stop the shooting and minimize harm to victims, law enforcement must be deployed immediately. Active shooter situations are often over in 10 to 15 minutes before law enforcement arrives on the scene. Because of this, each of us must be prepared both mentally and physically to respond. So, understanding all that, let's talk about how we as a company plan to respond in the event of an active shooter situation. This will help you to recognize the situation for what it is and know what to expect. When first made aware of the active shooter, management will assess the situation, and when a threat is identified, if possible, an announcement will be made stating, "Take shelter immediately." The entire facility will be locked down, and local law enforcement agencies will be contacted. Management will assist authorities and emergency responders by providing them crucial and timely information while they are en route. All of these things may occur simultaneously. There is no step-by-step process. So this is what management will do in an active shooter situation. But what should you do? When you first become aware of an active shooter, whether you hear a gunshot, screaming, or hear an announcement over the PA, the first thing you and your coworkers should do is disperse. Separate from others and go somewhere else quickly. The tendency will be for people to group together, to talk, look down the hallway, see what's going on. The problem is, large groups become targets to an active shooter, so you don't want to do this. Instead, spread out and avoid grouping. After dispersing, if possible, you should evacuate. If there is an accessible escape path, attempt to evacuate the building. Make sure you have your escape route and plan in mind before trying to flee. Evacuate regardless of whether others agree to follow you or not, and leave your belongings behind. You shouldn't take anything that might slow you down. When moving to lower floors, take the stairs only. Do not use the elevators. If at all possible, help others escape and prevent them from entering an area where the active shooter may be. Do not attempt to move wounded people. When you're safely out of danger, call 911. While on the phone to the 911 operator, or perhaps to a law enforcement official on the scene, you may be asked to provide the following information: the location of the active shooter, the number of shooters if more than one, and the physical description. Also, you might be asked the number and type of weapons held by the shooter and the number of potential victims at the location. When evacuation is not possible, your next course of action is to hide. Find a place to hide where the shooter is less likely to find you. You'll want to be out of the active shooter's view. Make sure your hiding place provides protection if shots are fired in your direction. Someplace like an office with a locked door would be better than a cubicle. Also, try to find a place that doesn't trap you or restrict your options for movement.
I just need it for the report that you sent out. No, yeah, everything's fine. No, it's good.
If the active shooter is nearby, then immediately lock the door. Most of our office and conference doors can be locked from the inside without a key. Then Turn off the lights, silence any mobile devices, and turn off any sources of noise, radios, televisions, etc. And blockade the door with heavy furniture. If possible, hide behind large items such as cabinets and desks and remain quiet. If evacuation and hiding are not possible, then first, remain calm. If possible, dial 911 and alert the police to the active shooter's location. If you are unable to speak, leave the line open and allow the dispatcher to listen. Now, only when your life is in danger and it is your absolute last resort should you take action against the active shooter. If you absolutely must take action against the active shooter, you must commit to disrupt or incapacitate the shooter by acting as aggressively as possible against them. You could throw items or improvise weapons. If there's nothing around and the shooter is approaching, you can even remove and throw your shoes. It sounds silly, but your goal is to distract the attacker to buy yourself time. Yell aggressively to surprise the attacker. The worst thing you can do when forced to confront an active shooter is nothing. Whatever you do, make sure you commit to your action. A very important part of dealing with an active shooter situation is how to respond when law enforcement arrives. When law enforcement first arrives, they will proceed directly to the area where the last shots were heard. The officers arrive in teams of 4, wearing either regular patrol uniforms or external bulletproof vests and other tactical equipment. They may be armed with rifles, shotguns, and handguns. In order to control the situation, pepper spray or tear gas may be used. Also, officers may shout commands, and they may push individuals to the ground for their own safety. Law enforcement is out to stop the shooter as soon as possible, and the first officers on the scene are not going to stop to help injured persons. Rescue teams made up of additional officers and emergency medical personnel will follow, and they will be the ones who will treat and remove any injured persons. They may also direct able-bodied individuals to assist in removing the wounded from the premises. How you react to law enforcement is very important. When they arrive, remain calm and follow the officer's instructions. Put down anything you might have in your hands and immediately raise your hands and spread your fingers. Make sure to keep your hands visible at all times. Proceed in the direction from which officers are entering the premises. Avoid making any quick movements toward officers, anything like holding on to them for safety. Do not point, scream, or yell. Do not stop to ask officers for help or direction when evacuating. Once you have reached a safe location or assembly point, you will more than likely be held there by law enforcement officials until the situation is under control and all witnesses have been identified and questioned. Do not leave until you have been instructed to do so by law enforcement authorities. Before we close, I want to take a moment to talk about one last thing, and that is what you can do today. First, take time to find and familiarize yourself with the evacuation route that is closest to you. It's the same route you'd use in a fire, so this should be a review. Remember that in a situation like this or a fire, do not use the elevators. Also, familiarize yourself with your own surroundings. What are some unlocked hiding places you have access to, and can you lock them without a key? Managers, think about how the things we've discussed in this video apply to your team and your unique situation. We all hope none of us ever have to be in an active shooter situation. But now, if one of these unfortunate events were to occur, you are more prepared to deal with the situation. Thank you again for taking time to view this video. For a recap of this information and a list of emergency numbers and non-emergency numbers to call in case of an active shooter, please refer to the Active Shooter How to Respond pamphlet. Thanks for watching. Be aware, take care, and stay safe.